Thank you. I'm really thrilled to be here today. Talk a little bit about my process and tell you a little bit about the Bay Lights. I got started way back when in installation sculpture as an undergraduate. I was combining space, found objects, light, and video into site-specific installations. I soon realized there was another form of art. I became acquainted with Donald Judd and Dan Flavin, minimal artwork, realized that art could really be stripped down to much less. Another inspiration for me is the art of James Turrell, who's working on a project about 150 miles north of here called Road and Crater. He's an amazing artist who is carving this crater, creating tunnels and apertures in which you can view the sky. Turrell is trying to create this effect of the vaulting of heaven where he can bring the sky down for a viewer to observe. My other passion, along with art, has been technology. I went to the Interactive Telecommunications program at NYU in 1992. At NYU, I studied interactive television. I was remixing television signals to create abstract art, treating television as a big clip art bin that I could remix at will. I was also interested in surgical simulators. I was experimenting with virtual reality, playing with sensors, navigation. That led me in the summer of '94 out to interval research in Palo Alto. Michael Neymark, who you see here, created a stereoscopic camera rig that he drove around in Banff, Canada, capturing stereoscopic stills. We spent the summer dimensionalizing Michael's data into this video you see. We extracted 3D information from the stereo pairs and started to put the camera in places that the camera never was. So we started to abstract this information, and in '94 it was a pretty exciting thing to be doing. But for me, I started to look at data and find it interesting that from one perspective it's coherent, but from another it's abstract. The other remarkable thing that happened in the summer of '94 is I went out to the Burning Man Festival in the Black Rock Desert of Nevada. A friend suggested we go out, we were going to burn something. It sounded intriguing. My first experience at Burning Man was getting profoundly lost. You know, as a 20-something-year-old, this sense of childlike loss, I found that very interesting. By my third year out on the playa, I decided to do something about this, and I created a sculpture with 16 strobe lights and a simple microcontroller. I sequenced the lights, and I took it and mounted it on top of my mobile home as a beacon. And this was really a utilitarian device. This was not something that I even thought of as an artwork. But for me, this magical moment happened where this door opened. I combined software and light and space. I took this back to New York and put it on my wall in my studio and knew I was really onto something. I went the completely other direction. Instead of needing more and more pixels and computers, I went really low res and decided to explore that end of the spectrum. Flash forward a few years, I began working with large-scale installations. My first large-scale piece was out at PS1 in Long Island City, which you see here, on the side of the building during a construction project. We put a grid of LED lights on the side of the building and really what was pretty much an industrial wasteland. There are many advertisements, billboards, all kinds of information, and I thought, why not introduce something that uses that same technology, LED, but shifts its purpose and starting to really deal with abstraction. I was also interested in the universality of the impact that these pieces had. People at the museum certainly were aware of the installation, but so was the gas station attendant that worked right across the street from it, or the taxi driver, and they noticed very subtle changes in the sequencing and were very well aware of it. So I realized public art has tremendous power and universality and an ability to communicate with a lot of people. I was very interested in the work of John Conway and the Game of Life, and how a simple set of rules could create something that felt organic and from life. And I began working with my own programming to create similar pieces, working with my own rules, integrating physics into those rules, things that feel familiar. But the way I'm working is I'm interested in taking the digital and bringing it out into the world. So I'm activating spaces, bringing them to life with the introduction of this LED technology and through sequencing. All these pieces are have any images or any text. Which brings me to the Bay Lights. I was asked by Ben Davis almost 3 years ago to think about the Bay Bridge as a canvas. Ben had worked with Caltrans in the past and was thinking about the 75th anniversary of the bridge and what could we do? How can we activate this piece of infrastructure? I spent a few months thinking about it and created this rendering. This is 25,000 white LED lights on the suspender cables of the bridge. I didn't really think about how we would do this. He asked me for the big idea, and here it was. And I thought, this will be a miracle if this ever happens. But Ben started showing this video to some people at Caltrans, and they started to get excited about it. And then we thought, well, how would we do this? So I want to do a quick demo here. Okay, here we go. So this is my primary material. These are LED lights which have been created by Philips Color Kinetics. These are rated at IP66 for wet locations. So our challenge was, how do we take this and put it on this massive piece of infrastructure? These lights are receiving one single byte, 0 is off, 255 is the maximum brightness. And we're creating UDP packets that we're sending to these lights. So we began this long process of actually figuring out how to do this project. First of all, the Bay Bridge is an enormous structure. We did several cable walks and went up to the top of the bridge. We went 525 feet up over the water on one side, 250 feet to traffic on the other. So it's one thing to do this all in Photoshop and 3D graphics. It's a whole other thing to get up there and say, how are we going to possibly do this? Because there's not a whole lot up there. It's very bare and minimal. We started working on a technical design, which you see here. We needed a network, a 1.8 mile long fiber optic network, racks of switches, in an incredibly harsh environment. So how are we going to distribute data and power all across this bridge? Our next challenge was, how much is this going to cost? It came back, there was going to be $8 million. So yet another challenge. We formed a nonprofit. We gathered a team of unbelievable people, our executive director, director of development, and went at it. Many times people told us this is absolutely impossible and you cannot do this in this amount of time. We refused to accept that as an answer, went out and found enough money to start actually putting lights on the bridge. So you can see our engineers here doing cable walks in the middle of the night. The bridge is only accessible via lane closure, so all the work had to happen from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. So we had guys hanging in harnesses, hanging this fragile piece of electronics in an incredibly tough environment. But in the end, we managed to do it. For me, what is really important about all of this is the programming. I had to sit in front of the bridge once this was all installed on the Embarcadero with my laptop working it out, because everything I do is site specific. It's not about me creating it back in my studio in New York and sending over the sequences. It's about how can we really activate this? How can I tune it? How can I make it feel appropriate for this environment? So on March 5th, we launched this piece, and here are some of the results that you see, some documentation. We estimate 50 million people will see this piece over 2 years. It's available to anyone. You don't have to buy a ticket. We did an economic impact study that says it will bring an additional $100 million into the San Francisco economy. So beyond being art, it's bringing major economic impact to the city. We presented this to the Conference of Mayors, and other cities are lining up. So this is a way that monumental public art, infrastructure, and art can join together and create really what is the future of design and art. So we have one special moment to share with you all. I can't take you all, and I hope that you all will come to San Francisco and see the Bay Lights, but with this amazing technology we have here and the engineers, we've been able to recreate a bit of what the Bay Lights is like. So the way this is working is light is very seductive. We're attracted to it. Then we see pattern. We recognize patterns. It's something that you know, but it's highly subjective because there are no images and no text. So you're putting together a model in your head of what you're seeing. which is pleasurable, but it's also ambient. It's non-repeating. There's a sense of freedom to it because it's not something that you're supposed to get. You can slip into it, out of it, but I think there's a real joy that this kind of work evokes in people as it allows them to play and to really explore. And I've often described this piece as a digital campfire and a way of building community. And there's been just so much spontaneous outpouring and joy that I've seen this piece create. And the introduction of just this simple element has really galvanized the city in a unique way. So thank you all very much.